breathing. Each inhale too shallow, each exhale too slow. A therapist once told me that hearing your own voice can ground you, anchor you in the present. So I downloaded a basic voice recorder app and left my phone on the nightstand, screen down, microphone facing me. The first night, I just talked. Nothing important. I described the room, the way the ceiling fan wobbled slightly when it spun, the crack in the paint above the closet door that looked like a branching vein. I narrated my thoughts until they dulled and eventually drifted off mid-sentence. When I woke up, the recording had stopped on its own. That felt normal. I listened to it later while making coffee. My voice sounded calmer than I remembered, slower, like someone who wasn't in a rush to escape their own head. It helped. That night, I did it again. By the end of the week, it was routine. I'd lie down, hit record, and talk until sleep took over. Sometimes I'd ramble. Sometimes I'd repeat the same sentence over and over, like a mantra. I never listened to the full recordings, just enough to confirm they were there. Until the night I heard something I didn't remember saying. It was small at first, easy to dismiss. I had recorded myself talking about work, emails I hadn't answered, deadlines I was pretending didn't exist. Halfway through the playback, there was a pause. Not silence. Breathing. Then my voice again. But the sentence fell off. I should stop here, the recording said. I didn't remember saying that. I shrugged it off. Sleep talking, maybe. I'd read that people say strange things when they drift in and out of consciousness. I deleted the file and went on with my day. That night, I recorded again. This time, I was more deliberate. I talked about my childhood home, the hallway light that flickered, the sound of my father's footsteps in the morning. Safe memories. Familiar ones. I fell asleep faster than usual. The next morning, curiosity got the better of me. I sat on the edge of my bed and listened to the entire recording from start to finish. My voice was steady at first, calm, controlled. Then, around the 30-minute mark, there was another pause. Breathing. Not heavier. Not faster. Just a closer. Then my voice again. You don't need to explain that part. My stomach tightened. I was awake when I recorded that. I would have remembered saying something like that. It wasn't filler. It wasn't rambling. It sounded intentional. Corrective. I checked the waveform. There's no edit. No splice. One continuous recording. I told myself the same thing everyone tells themselves when something doesn't make sense. I'm overthinking it. That night, I tested it. I spoke clearly, slowly, deliberately. I described what I was doing in the moment. I'm lying in bed, I said. I'm holding my phone. I'm going to stop talking in 10 seconds. I counted down out loud. 10, 9, 8. I never reached one. Sleep took me mid-count. In the morning, I listened. The countdown stopped at 6. There was a pause. Then my voice continued. 5 is unnecessary. I sat there, phone in my hand, heart beating hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. I scrubbed backward and listened again. Same thing. Same tone. Same cadence. Same voice. Mine. I didn't go to work that day. I stayed home, pacing my apartment, replaying the clip until the words lost meaning and became nothing but sound. I tried to convince myself it was some kind of glitch, but glitches don't sound thoughtful. They don't correct you. That night, I didn't want to record again. But I did, because part of me needed to know. I spoke less. Short sentences. Neutral topics. I avoided anything personal, anything emotional. I stayed awake longer than usual, forcing myself to remain conscious while recording. Nothing strange happened. No pauses. No additions. I felt stupid for being afraid. Just before turning the recording off, I sighed and said, "See? Nothing." The next morning, I listened. The recording ended exactly where I remembered stopping it. Except for one thing. At the very end, barely audible, just before the file cut off, my voice whispered, "Not yet." I deleted the app after that. I should have stopped there. But once you hear something that sounds like you're making decisions you don't remember making, silence stops being comforting. It starts to feel like a gap, and gaps invite things to fill them. I lasted 3 nights without recording anything. Those were the worst nights. Without my voice filling the room, my thoughts came back sharper, more aggressive. Every creak of the building sounded deliberate. Every pause and sound felt staged, like something was waiting for me to notice the quiet. On the fourth night, I gave in. I didn't reinstall the old app. I downloaded a different one. New interface. New permissions. I even checked the reviews like that would somehow protect me. I told myself this wasn't fear. It was control. If something was happening, I needed to understand it. I placed the phone on the nightstand again, face down, just like before. But this time, I didn't talk right away. I listened to myself breathe. 30 seconds passed. A minute. Then I said, "This is just to help me sleep." The words sounded weaker out loud. I talked about neutral things again. Weather. Groceries. A movie I half remembered. I avoided questions. I avoided pauses. I kept my voice moving like motion itself could keep something from slipping in. Sleep came slowly, reluctantly. When I woke up, sunlight was spilling through the blinds, and my jaw ached from clenching it in my sleep. The phone was still recording. I almost didn't listen. Almost. The first part was normal. My voice, steady but tired. Then my words started drifting, sentences blurring as sleep took hold. Then I heard the pause. It was longer this time. Not empty. Never empty. Breathing. Then my voice again. "You're trying too hard." I felt heat rise up my neck. I hadn't said that. I knew I hadn't. Not because it was impossible, but because it felt directed. Like it was aimed at me now, not the dark. I skipped ahead. The rest of the recording was worse. My voice spoke intermittently, separated by long gaps. But the words weren't rambling. They were structured, responsive. At one point, my recorded voice said, "You're going to rewind this part?" I froze. Slowly, deliberately, I rewound. The same sentence played again. "You're going to rewind this part." I dropped the phone. Tea clattered against the hardwood floor, skidding under the bed. I stood there breathing hard, staring at the empty space where it disappeared like it might crawl back out on its own. I didn't retrieve it until noon. I called in sick again. That afternoon, I did something I should have done earlier. I listened to older recordings. I went back to the very first week, the ones I barely remembered. I played them in order, not while multitasking, not half listening. I sat still and focused. At first, everything sounded fine. Then I noticed a pattern. The pauses weren't random. They were getting longer over time. And my voice, when it came back, sounded more confident. Less hesitant. Like someone who knew exactly what they wanted to say. I reached a recording from 2 weeks earlier and felt my stomach drop. There was a sentence I remembered thinking, but not saying. "I don't like being alone with my thoughts." I paused the playback. I remembered thinking that exact sentence before falling asleep that night. I remembered deciding not to say it out loud. But there it was, in my voice. I spent the rest of the day testing myself. I think a sentence, deliberately choose not to speak it, then talk around it instead. That night, I recorded again. In the morning, the recording filled in every gap. Not word for word, but close enough, as if it understood the intent. That's when the questions started. I didn't plan them. They just slipped out. What happens if I stop listening? Why does this feel familiar? Is this still me? Each time, I fell asleep before hearing an answer. Each time, the answers were waiting in the morning. Not immediately after the questions. Never obvious. They appeared later in the recording, woven into unrelated sentences. "You won't. Because it's always been like this." Yes. The scariest part wasn't that the answers existed. It was that they felt reasonable. Comforting, even. My days started to blur. I'd catch myself pausing mid-conversation at work, waiting for a response that wasn't coming. I began rehearsing sentences in my head before speaking, testing how they felt, like I was checking with something unseen. One night, I tried something reckless. I stayed awake. I lay there, eyes open, staring at the ceiling fan while the phone recorded. I focused on staying conscious, counting rotations, grounding myself. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. Then, without meaning to, I thought, "Ask it directly." My mouth moved before I could stop it. "Are you me?" Silence. No breathing. No pause. Then, very softly, my voice said something I was absolutely awake to hear. Not entirely. I sat up so fast my head spun. The phone was still on the nightstand. Still recording. Still. I didn't sleep after that. I just lay there, staring at the phone, listening to my own breathing echo faintly from the speaker. The recording continued for hours, capturing nothing but me being awake and afraid. When the sun finally came up, I turned it off. I didn't listen to that one. I didn't need to. Because for the first time, I couldn't tell where my thoughts ended and the recordings began. And something about that felt intentional. I stopped sleeping in my bedroom. At first, it was a couch thing. Temporary. Just until I felt normal again. I told myself the bed was the problem, that the recordings had trained my brain to associate that space with anxiety. But the couch didn't help. Neither did the guest room. Neither did leaving the lights on. Silence followed me now. Not the absence of sound, something worse. The feeling that sound was waiting for permission. I deleted every recording I had left. I emptied the trash. I wiped the app data. I even reset my phone, watched the progress bar crawl across the screen like it was erasing evidence of something that didn't want to be forgotten. For 2 days, nothing happened. I almost believed I was free. On the third night, I woke up at 3:12 a.m. with the unmistakable sensation that someone had just finished speaking. You know that feeling, when the air still feels shaped by words. My phone was face down on the nightstand. I hadn't put it there. I picked it up with shaking hands. No recording app open. No notifications. No missed calls. But when I unlocked the screen, there was a single audio file saved to my phone. I didn't listen. I threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and fell to the floor with a dull crack. The screen spiderwebbed, but the device stayed on, glowing faintly in the dark like an unblinking eye. I slept with headphones on after that. White noise. Rain sounds. Anything to keep my own thoughts from forming complete sentences. That was my mistake. Because the recordings never needed my voice. They needed my attention. It started small. I catch myself thinking something and feeling a subtle resistance, like the thought didn't quite belong to me anymore. I'd open my mouth to speak and stop, unsure if the sentence was mine or already rehearsed. At work, I answered a question before it was finished being asked. At the grocery store, I reached for an item I didn't remember deciding to buy. The gaps were growing. I tried writing instead. Pen and paper. Something physical. Something unrecordable. The handwriting wasn't always mine. Sometimes I'd look down mid-sentence and realize the tone had shifted. More decisive. More concise. Like someone editing me in real time. One night, I stood in the bathroom staring at my reflection, practicing sentences out loud. My name is. The words stuck. Not physically. Mentally. Like something was waiting to see what I'd choose. I whispered, "Stop." And my reflection smiled a second too late. I don't know when I stopped being afraid. Fear implies resistance. What I felt instead was inevitability. The recordings hadn't been changing me. They had been revealing something that was already there. Something quieter. More efficient. I found the unnamed audio file again a week later, on a different device. My laptop. I hadn't transferred anything. I hadn't logged into any cloud service. It was just there. This time I listened. It was my voice, calm and steady, speaking as if to a friend. "You're struggling because you think control means authorship," it said. "You think choosing the words matters more than saying them well." There was a pause. "Then, you can rest now." The recording ended. After that, things got easier. I stopped hesitating. Conversations flowed. Decisions felt natural. My thoughts were quieter, more orderly. I slept through the night for the first time in months. I don't record anymore. I don't need to. Sometimes, when I'm about to say something important, I feel that familiar pause, that space where silence waits to be filled. And the words come effortlessly. Not forced. Not borrowed. Just correct. If you're listening to this and it sounds familiar, don't worry. You're not losing yourself. You're just learning how to sound like you were always meant to.